Most whiskey brands are dying. 16 million barrels sit unsold. Distilleries are going dark. Yet 12 brands are quietly printing money inside a $93 billion industry. And the strategies they're using are borderline genius. We're exposing exactly what separates legends from failures tonight. The brand at number one became iconic precisely because the entire industry turned against it. You need to see why. Let's count down. Number 12. Laphroaig, the polarization master. Coming in at number 12, Laphroaig. And yes, I know what you're thinking. Why start with the whiskey that tastes like medicine? The answer reveals something's crucial. In a crowded market, being impossible to ignore beats being easy to like. On a remote Scottish island called Islay, isolation created something that shouldn't exist. A whiskey so polarizing it comes with a warning. They smoke their grain over peat fires for 10 to 12 hours. This creates that medicinal taste that divides the whiskey world. They age it in old bourbon barrels for 10 years. This adds vanilla sweetness that's quickly overtaken by salt, tar, and smoke. The finish lasts for minutes. But the brilliant part, Laphroaig doesn't fight the polarization, they embrace it. The British royal family even gave them their seal of approval. This proves that being divisive doesn't prevent prestige. Now, I'm curious. Share in the comments. Are you Team Laphroaig or Team No Thank You? Because this next brand took the complete opposite approach. The lesson? Being loved by a few can be more profitable than being liked by many. Our number 11 brand used universal appeal to conquer the world. Number 11. Evan Williams, the value champion. The second best-selling bourbon globally at $12 to $18. And if you're wondering how a budget bourbon made this list, you're about to learn something that'll surprise you. During the Great Depression, when luxury died overnight, Evan Williams made a promise. Great bourbon doesn't need great packaging. That promise built an empire. The foundation, 78% corn, 12% malted barley, 10% rye. They age it 5 to 7 years, longer than many expensive brands. At 86 proof, it delivers more punch than watered-down competitors. What surprised me when I researched this? Blind taste tests consistently show Evan Williams beating brands twice its price. Heaven Hill keeps quality high while cutting everything else. No fancy packaging, no marketing budgets, just substance. Critics call the labeling cheap. But the truth is, when money gets tight, value beats vanity. Substance survives when budgets shrink. While Laphroaig chose polarization, Evan Williams chose the opposite, universal value. Our next brand, they chose complexity as their weapon. Number 10. Glenfiddich, the category creator. And something that'll surprise you. In 1963, single malt wasn't even a category. It was just raw material for blends. Glenfiddich didn't just create a product, they created a $10 billion market. The Grant family still owns this company. This lets them think long-term instead of worrying about quarterly profits. They produce 10 million liters annually and control 30% of the global single malt market. They even make their own barrels on site. They age their whiskey in American bourbon and European sherry barrels. This creates the classic Scottish profile. No smoke, fruity, welcoming. Though critics argue the 80 proof makes it feel thin for a premium product. Where Evan Williams delivered value, Glenfiddich took a different path. They created scarcity by inventing an entire category. The advantage: while corporate brands answer to shareholders, Glenfiddich answers to family. In crisis, that's the difference between survival and extinction. Now, some of you family business owners are probably nodding along. Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think family ownership is an advantage or limitation? Our number 9 brand used royal approval to build global dominance. Number 9. Crown Royal, the complexity insurance policy. 50 different whiskeys in one blend. And before you say that's excessive, let me explain why this might be the smartest strategy on our entire list. Created for King George VI's 1939 visit to Canada, Crown Royal turned national pride into global currency. They use 5 different ways to make whiskey and 3 different grain recipes: high rye, high corn, and barley. What most people miss: when supply chains break, 50 sources provide 50 backup plans. Their facility in Manitoba, Canada, produces more than the next 6 Canadian brands combined. Critics call it boring. Some reviews note a grain-neutral presence. But the brilliant insight: Crown Royal's smoothness strategy works because it offends no one. Consider the contrast. Laphroaig polarizes. Evan Williams delivers value. Glenfiddich created a category. Crown Royal? They chose universal acceptance. The purple bag and crown bottle maintain the royal heritage story. Royal approval launched the global brand and put Canadian spirits on the world map. Sometimes the best product is the one that offends no one. Our number 8 brand proved that being different eventually becomes being essential. Number 8. Maker's Mark, the Wheat Revolution. And a question for you: why is wheated bourbon suddenly everywhere when Maker's Mark invented it 70 years ago? Because they proved that being different eventually becomes being essential. In 1953, when bourbon meant harsh and aggressive, the Samuels family committed heresy. They replaced the spicy rye grain with soft wheat and proved bourbon could be gentle. The foundation: 70% corn, 16% wheat, 14% barley. They use a special mill that prevents grain bitterness. That hand-dipped red wax became their signature, and yes, they still do every bottle by hand. The industry called it impossible. But what's fascinating: today's wheated bourbon boom proves their 70-year-old gamble was right. Premium brands like Weller and Van Winkle followed the template Maker's Mark created. Where Crown Royal chose complexity, Maker's Mark chose simplification, removing the rye that made bourbon harsh. Innovation takes decades to pay off. Our number 7 brand used complexity as their ultimate weapon. Number 7. Johnnie Walker Black, the blending genius. 40+ whiskeys in one bottle. And if you're thinking, didn't Crown Royal already do the complexity thing? The strategy is completely different. That blend uses Cardhu for sweetness, Talisker for spice, and Kale Isla for smoke. This creates something no single distillery can match: supply chain strength. When one distillery faces problems, 39 others step in. When grain shortages hit one region, other regions fill the gap. Complexity isn't just flavor, it's insurance. Critics attack the caramel coloring and chill filtration. Purists prefer single malts, but they're missing the strategic insight. Consider our journey so far: Laphroaig's polarization, Glenfiddich's category creation, Crown Royal's 50-blend complexity. Johnnie Walker took complexity and turned it into crisis-proofing. Every whiskey in the blend ages at least 12 years. They bottle at 80 proof. The Beverage Testing Institute gave it 90 points. But the real proof? Market performance during every crisis for over a century. While single malts depend on one distillery's success, Johnnie Walker's complexity makes it bulletproof. Our number 6 brand. They made bulletproof look easy. Number 6. Jameson, the global domination risk. 90% of Irish whiskey exports. And the shocking part: that dominance might be their biggest weakness. Triple distillation in copper stills creates the smoothness that conquered global markets. They blend pot still whiskey with grain whiskey to deliver consistency across continents. 4.7 out of 5 stars from over 8,000 reviews. But what keeps me up at night about Jameson's strategy, extreme dependence on international trade, makes them hostage to forces beyond their control. 10% EU tariffs are just the beginning. Trade wars escalate quickly. When governments use spirits as political weapons, export-dependent brands become casualties. Recall Johnnie Walker's Complexity Insurance? Jameson put all their eggs in one basket: global appeal. That clean, light fruitiness that offends no one becomes a weakness when trade barriers make exports expensive. Global dominance creates global vulnerability. Our number 5 brand turned corporate ownership into their secret weapon. And what's coming in our top 5 will change everything you think you know about whiskey success. Number 5, Jim Beam, the corporate survival master. Still family name when Beam Suntory owns it. And this might be the smartest business move in whiskey history. The Claremont Distillery just paused production. Even giants are shutting down due to oversupply. But Jim Beam's corporate structure might be their salvation. The foundation: 75% corn, 13% rye, 12% malted barley. They've used the same yeast strain since 1933. Low and slow distillation preserves grain character. The brilliant insight: corporate ownership provided global distribution while keeping production quality. Beam Suntory's resources enabled expansion that family ownership couldn't afford. Critics call Jim Beam thin as plywood when drunk straight, but that misses the point. They dominate mixing where spicy rye notes cut through sugar and citrus perfectly. Consider our countdown: Jameson's export dependence, Johnnie Walker's complexity, Maker's Mark's innovation. Jim Beam chose pragmatism over pride. Sometimes losing control is the only way to keep influence. Our number 4 brand. They proved luxury can survive any crisis. We're halfway through our countdown, and if you're enjoying these insider secrets, consider subscribing, because our top 4 are genuinely surprising. Number 4, the Macallan, the luxury gamble. $80 to $105 when similar Scotch sells for $45. And the controversial truth: they might be worth every penny. Curiously small stills maximize copper contact. Only 16% of distilled spirit makes the cut, the narrowest selection in Scotch whiskey. But where it gets controversial: Sherry Oak uses European oak, Double Cask blends American and European. Critics argue Double Cask feels rough compared to the original. The real issue? The premium tax. GlenDronach and Tamtu offer similar quality cheaper. But what critics miss: the Macallan created the luxury whiskey category. Recall Jim Beam's corporate pragmatism? The Macallan took the opposite bet: pure luxury positioning. Auction prices for aged bottles prove their strategy works. That Scottish heritage and collector market support premium pricing. Now I'm curious. Luxury whiskey drinkers in the audience, is the story worth the premium? Share your thoughts in the comments. The question: does luxury whiskey need to justify its price with liquid quality? Or is prestige enough? Our top 3 brands answered that question in very different ways. Number 3, Wild Turkey 101, the integrity legend. Why Jimmy Russell's 60-year promise is paying off bigger than ever. While everyone chased smooth vodka drinkers in the 70s, Russell held the line. 101 proof. No compromise. Picture this: industry executives telling Russell he's crazy. Competitors lowering proof for mass appeal. But Russell understood something they didn't. Integrity creates lasting respect. The foundation: 75% corn, 13% rye, 12% malted barley. That high barrel entry proof preserves flavor oils. Heavy char barrels add complexity. Smooth whiskeys can't match. Then came the craft cocktail renaissance. Bartenders needed high-proof spirits that could stand up to citrus and sugar. Wild Turkey became the professional standard. Consider our journey: the Macallan's luxury gamble, Jim Beam's corporate strategy, Jameson's global appeal. Wild Turkey, pure, stubborn integrity. When everyone else ran toward the cliff, Russell stood still. Professional validation drives consumer adoption. Our number 2 brand? They turned scarcity into the most powerful marketing tool in modern history. And what they did will genuinely surprise you. Number 2. Buffalo Trace, the scarcity alchemist. The mind-bending paradox. Impossible to find when 16 million barrels sit in warehouses. They've mastered the most powerful force in modern marketing: artificial scarcity. Record bourbon supply. Buffalo Trace scarcity. Secondary market prices 2 to 3 times retail. Loyal customers priced out of their favorite brand. How they cracked the code. While competitors chase volume, they perfected their recipe. That low rye formula shared with Eagle Rare creates flavor so distinctive that scarcity becomes a feature, not a bug. Master distiller Harlan Wheatley oversees over 500 awards since 2000. But the brilliant part, they never increased production to meet demand. Buffalo Trace at 90 proof sells for $25 to $35 retail. Good luck finding it at that price. The secondary market turned a $30 bourbon into a $100 status symbol. Recall Wild Turkey's integrity? Buffalo Trace proved that in 2026, being unavailable is more valuable than being everywhere. Our number 1 brand. They didn't just master one strategy. They rewrote the entire playbook. And what they did changed whiskey forever. Number 1. Jack Daniel's, the accessibility empire. The most famous American whiskey in the world. And the controversial truth that'll change how you see every bottle on your shelf. In 2002, they made the most controversial decision in bourbon history. And today's crisis proves they were right. They dropped proof from 86 to 80. Critics erupted. Enthusiasts felt betrayed. But Jack Daniel's had a strategy nobody understood. The Lincoln County process filters every drop through 10 feet of sugar maple charcoal. Their recipe of 80% corn, 12% barley, 8% rye creates those banana bread flavors casual drinkers love. What critics missed: Jack Daniel's wasn't chasing whiskey drinkers, they were creating them. Consider our entire countdown: Lafroig's polarization, Buffalo Trace's scarcity, Wild Turkey's integrity, the Macallan's luxury. Jack Daniel's chose accessibility. While bourbon purists argue proof points, Jack Daniel's conquered the world. $22 to $30 price point. Global dominance through approachability. Jack Daniel's taught the industry that accessibility beats authenticity in the fame game. In today's oversupplied market, that lesson matters more than ever. They didn't just become famous, they made whiskey famous. These 12 brands became legends because they survived when thousands didn't. From Lafroig's bold polarization to Jack Daniel's universal accessibility, each bottle represents a different path to immortality. The whiskey market hits $100 billion this year, but that growth hides massive disruption. The survivors won't have the best marketing, they'll have the best crisis management. Which strategy resonates with you? Share your thoughts in the comments, subscribe for more deep dives, and remember, legends aren't born perfect, they're forged in fire. Cheers.